Well, g'day, beautiful people. How are you? I trust you have had yourselves a fabulous weekend. Let me set my screens up here a bit so I can make sure that people are being seen at the appropriate point and place. Oops, going to move that down a little bit. Give me 1 second. Going to be able to see the bottom of another screen. God, I hate it when a screen doesn't come together the way it should. There you go. That'll be a bit easier for me. Won't mean much to you. Hope your weekend's been pretty good, folks. I've spent the weekend variously trying to put together this radio station and discover some songs, 22,000 songs, all with a number, not a name or an artist. It's difficult when you're putting your radio station together. Just put it that way. Interestingly enough, it actually came from a radio station, but because of the way radio station software systems work, this one in particular stored it without name and artist, just stores the track as a number. And then you've got to go through and rename it all if you want to do what I'm doing to it. So it is a long, tiring, laborious process, but we are slowly but surely getting through it. I may have a little bit of a fix tomorrow, fingers crossed, so this thing will happen sooner rather than later. But we are getting there. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everybody who's been in contact about the idea we're pushing at the moment to get ourselves back on the road and be able to produce something for the freedom movement. Thank you to everybody who's been in touch looking to either donate or to inquire as to how they might be able to be involved in the company that's being put together by Cass Smith and the team at Freedom Financial Solutions. Now, they've had pretty tumultuous last couple of weeks, if I'm honest. Cass's father passed away, which was quite tragic. She's had some time for that. She's had another very dear friend of hers have a loss in her family, pretty much right on the back of her dad's. And it's been a pretty hard couple of weeks, I guess, for not only Cass, but a lot of the people around her too. So thinking of you, darling, and hope you're getting through it all, battling through it all. And of course, to Sam and the family as well. My thoughts are with you. We will learn more about what's going on in that in the coming days and weeks. We are trying to raise a certain level of finance that will allow us to go and get a bit more gear and then hit the road again in some earnest. So thank you to everybody who has emailed me and sent me questions, queries, or in fact have decided they already want to invest. I can't thank you enough for your involvement with that. And if you haven't heard about it yet and you want to learn more about it, then by all means, please email me, carl@vofhq.com, and I will put you in touch with Cass, and she will give you the lowdown on how the company is going to be structured. Essentially, the deal is the company will own some assets, and either when this war is over or should something really awful happen, and it all falls over, then the assets can be sold and the people who have bought the company will be able to recover most, if not all, of the money that they have contributed to setting the company up. It is a fairly big job that we're looking to try and do. And if we can get your involvement, well, it'll make it just that little bit easier. So if you are interested, give me an email, carl@vofhq.com, and we will go from there. Also, if you are interested in coming to a Brisbane show, we have a venue in the eastern suburbs of Brisbane. I'm not going to announce it just yet or the dates, but it'll be in the next 4 weeks or so. If you would like to come, then please email Rachel, Rachel, at Voice of Freedom or VoFHQ.com. I beg your pardon. Rachel at VoFHQ.com, and put your name down. Now, the area is going to be limited in size, and depending on the amount of interest that we get, we might be able to open another area up. But at this point in time, I would say the first 100 people will be guaranteed of a seat. After that, there might be some standing room. And if we do get an overwhelming demand, if you like, then we might be able to open up another area. And, well, it'll be a pretty good night. Let's put it that way. It will be a licensed venue. You will be able to get a feed. In fact, there are some of the best food trucks known to exist going to be there that night. So if you would like to be a part of that, we'd love to see you. It'll be in the eastern suburbs of Brisbane. And it'll be a Friday night, I dare say, or there is a potential it might be a Wednesday night. So be prepared. It could be a Wednesday night, probably more likely than being a Friday night, if I'm honest. So a Wednesday, maybe even a Tuesday, but we will get it out, and it will happen pretty regularly. A Voice of Freedom, my place, if you like. I'm going to aim to try and get Darren Bergwerf up here for it. I'll see if I can't get the old pirate off the boat and out for it as well. And it should be a pretty good night in Brisbane, where we can, finally get together, meet, and discuss some of the things that are going on. Hopefully cheer each other up a little bit, boost each other up a little bit, and build our communities up a little bit as well. I really hope that that's something you want to be part of. I would love you to be part of that. Now, I have posted a video in the description in today's show. This is a video that I was sent last night. I watched early this morning. It's not very long. It's well worth a look. It does bring into question we have been talking about here for quite some time regarding the voice. Now, obviously, if you're watching this show, you're probably going to vote no anyway. There is a lot of noise coming out of Victoria at the moment and some other states that the vote is not as much in our favour as we might be led to believe. So the mainstream media, of course, are very good at manipulating things. Let's leave it at that. Now, we could be falling into a false sense of security, being told that the no vote has overwhelming support across the country. I know we want to believe that, but we cannot afford to rest on any laurel. We cannot afford to rest up on pushing the no vote arguments. We cannot afford to stop talking about this referendum if it eventually happens. Albanese is dead set on making this happen. He is obviously lying his ass off when it comes to what Uluru Statement from the Heart is, and it certainly isn't a pay for 400 and something, I think. It is nothing like that. It is 26 pages plus more annexes and associated other bits and pieces. That is available on the website if you want to go and have a look at it. And I would be very surprised, highly surprised, if it's going to get up once people read the full document. However, stories out of Victoria are the vote is running 44% yes and 44% no at the moment, running level pegging. Now, can we trust any of the surveys, if you like, coming out of Victoria? Probably not. Can't trust anything else that's come out of Victoria in God knows how many years, and nothing much has changed. Although I did find a little bit of truth came out of Victoria recently. An actual crock of shit. Couldn't be more true, could it? Absolutely stunning. Well done to whoever came up with that meme. Victoria, not real good on the polls. And certainly vote counting is a real problem down there. And, well, let's say that Dan Andrews is running the Mao Zedong kind of campaign that you would expect out of a good communist. And I don't expect we can expect much civility or truth coming out of their mouths. So I would urge you to go and have a look at this video that I've posted in a link to in the description of the video, whether you're on Rumble or on YouTube. It's in that description. Go and have a look. It really draws into question who are Australia's First Nations people. Are we just believing that the people we are told are our First Nations people have been here 60,000 years? The anthropological record suggests differently. And there have been a number of people who have written books, done research, a great deal of research into culturally significant and ancient type cultural ceremony. That includes a lot of research and investigation into the origins of dot painting. You might be surprised to learn that dot painting is not as old or as ancient as you might first believe. I know I was. So I would suggest, if you have the time, it's not a particularly long video, and I don't even think it runs half an hour. I think it's worthwhile every Australian having a look at. And you've heard me allude to the fact that Cooktown, I believe, holds a lot of the secrets to Australia's colonisation, and a lot of truth can be found in Cooktown through some documents that were left there by Captain Cook and by Joseph Banks. I haven't seen those documents. I'm very keen to go there and have a look. So if you'd like to help fund us up to Cooktown, that would be awesome. There is about a week's worth of research I've got to sit there do, I think. And Stephen Spears is up there, I believe, in Cooktown. So it might be worth a conversation with him if I manage to get up there. But there is a deep story of Australia's true beginnings that in far north Queensland, where our Australian history, as you and I might have been told it, coming from down south, is very different to what people on country in the far north of Queensland, at least. I can't speak for the whole of far north Australia, but certainly in far north Queensland, there are a couple of very interesting histories there, including the Pygmies, who were cannibalized by tribes coming over from Torres Strait Island, amongst others. Also, origins of the bloodlines that came over back in the day, and where those bloodlines came from. You might recall, if you've been watching this show on occasion, I've mentioned India, or the subcontinent. Well, certainly Aboriginal blood has traces of Indian blood in it. There is certain Aboriginal blood that has traces of Pakistani in it. Quite a large mix of subcontinent and Asian influence, or Indonesian influence in ancient bloodlines. So we would, before we start throwing open and giving all power and paying a percentage of our GDP every year to the voice, we might want to check its bona fides and find out whether or not the civilization actually is 60,000 years old. I noticed too that the ABC particularly, but maybe some other media organisations, have been starting to push the fact that Aboriginal tribes back in the day were hunter-gatherer growers. Hunter-gatherer-growers. Hunter-gatherers normally are a nomadic tribe, because they've got to hunt to find the food. They keep moving with the food. I don't know how you can have hunter-gatherer-growers, because growers need to be in one place for a long time. Growers need to cultivate the land, need to prepare the land, need to grow crops, need to make things from those crops. There has never, ever, ever in the history of Australia been any indication that there was any kind of civilization like that from our First Nations people. They were a nomadic people. They weren't putting in crops, setting up farms. They weren't growing wheat and making flour and baking bread. There was none of that. These people foraged off the land, ate off the land, and moved with the land, over the land, in search of the food. Now, I'm pretty sure that's an accepted historical statement for the Aboriginal tribes of Australia. And they must have bumped into each other occasionally, you've got to think, because, well, here's an idea. That is the Aboriginal tribal list in Australia, and the country that each tribe has. Now, within the tribes, you have clans. So there'll be different clans in different parts of that tribal area. Some of those clans don't get along with other clans in their area, and that's where some of the fighting happens. And then, of course, some of the clans don't get along with other clans in other tribes. I was interested to learn that the totems link a lot of these tribes together. So if your tribe is a crocodile, then there might be 100 other, I don't know for exactly how many, but there might be a significant number of other tribes that also have the crocodile as their totem. So you would be linked to linked all together to those all those different tribes through your totem. It's almost like a brotherhood, if you like. If you are a turtle totem, or a kangaroo, or a emu, or a goanna, or a snake, or whatever, doesn't matter which part of the country your tribe is located in. Any other tribe in any other part of the country that has the same totem is linked to you. Or at least this is my understanding. This is how your family expands, if you like, and how your roots grow out inside the Aboriginal nation. So that map, I'm not exactly sure how true that map is or how accurate. We have some, well, I'm led to believe 349, I believe, individual tribes in this country, but somebody was telling me the other day there could, in fact, be over 600. So how do we establish exactly, the numbers are going to work out here, and somebody needs to be better at maths than me. We need to go back to the last census and find out exactly how many people are identifying as Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander. And I want to say there are less than 300,000 of them in Australia that actively identify as Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander. Now, of the 300,000, how many of them are actually Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander? I couldn't put a number on it, but certainly not all of them. Not with any, degree of actual truth, put it that way. So if we accept that there are a number of people who are taking the mickey, and I wasn't taking the mickey, but I did enjoy walking into Centrelink a few years ago, and when they asked whether or not I had identified as an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander, I ticked the box yes. And when the woman interviewing me looked at that and looked at me and looked at the box again and looked at me again, she said, "Did you mean to tick that you identify as Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "You don't look very Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander." I said, "Are you telling me that I can't identify as that?" So she saw where the argument was immediately going and gave no more opposition, ticked the box and marked me through. I never went through with that, just so you know. But that's how easy it can be. There are, a couple of little tests that you're given, and if you know how to answer the questions, then you will be accepted regardless of your ethnicity as someone who identifies as Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander. Makes it hard for everybody else, especially for those Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders who really do need our care, our help, our services. Which leads me on to the rest of the voice conversation. $34.9 billion last year Aboriginal services got in this country, spread across a number of different agencies, but all supposedly dedicated to Aboriginal health and welfare. What bullshit. What utter bullshit. Now, if there are 300,000 Aboriginals in this country, you need to rise up now against the corporate blacks that are stealing this money the Australian people are giving to you to try and solve these problems. This money isn't getting to you. This money is being stolen by the corporate black community who are in league with the politicians. Now, I don't suggest for a moment that the corporate blacks are keeping all the money. They're certainly not. The way that the brown paper bag works in politics is that the government fills it, makes sure that the person or persons or organizations they're going to give it to are the right kind of people. They're the ones that'll do the right thing by the people. And when the government says that, the people, they mean the government people, because that little brown bag will get passed around and passed around and passed around. And yes, the corporate blacks will take their pick out of it, but so will everybody else as it goes past their nose. On the way back, I am sure, to a politician or to a political party or to some sneaky little, black budget bank account where the fighting fund that produces things like Get Up comes from. Yep, George Soros funded that. So probably a bad example, but you get the idea. We need to stop these bastards. and sooner rather than later. So, how do we stop them? Well, that's a nice segue to go into this, maybe. International global martial law. That is the statement being made into this journal, the AMG News. This is now Ground Command. If you've known about this battle for a while, you'll know that Ground Command are well, not Space Command, but they work with Space Command on the Earth, obviously. Ground Command. The entire world is currently under international or global martial law. A seismic shift is underway in the world as it's plunged into global martial law. Unrecognized bankrupt governments are scrambling to reassert their sovereignty, while powerful entities like the IME, the UN, and the World Bank are cast aside. The shadowy Ground Command is orchestrating this global overhaul with vast implications for every human on the planet. Now, what does it mean for you? Well, let's read on. In a world of veiled truths, one stands above all others, casting a dark shadow over every government and institution on the planet. According to Ground Command, the orchestrator of the New World Order, the entire globe is under international, not national, martial law. The rules of the game have changed, and what you now know about the world is about to be turned upside down. Governments bankrupt and unrecognized. The World Bank, the UN, the WEF, defunct corporations. The Federal Reserve is on notice to provide all its assets back by a certain date. That date has now passed. Now, this is a pretty interesting little document. And given the amount of military that we are seeing in our skies, and I was only talking with somebody today who would know what they were talking about in this regard. There is a lot of aircraft that we are seeing, a lot of military aircraft that we are seeing, but of course, there are probably twice as many that we simply are not seeing. Because the only way we can see the aircraft using the systems that we have is if they actually have a transponder on. All right, it's not like we have our own radar plane up there pinging anything that's flying, over 300 feet. It doesn't happen like that. So we are tied into using things like Skyglass or Flight Radar 24, or if you're into tracking ships, there's a multitude of ship trackers and all that kind of stuff. So there is a fair bit of military traffic going on. And in fact, only yesterday, I think there was another flight that flew direct Sydney to Guam. I don't know. And this is the thing. I haven't got the historical knowledge, not being a historical plane watcher, but I haven't got the historical knowledge to know how many flights a week we would ordinarily send to Guam. But I would have to say, in an ordinary week, I wouldn't expect that we would be sending nearly the number of flights direct to Guam. 737s we're sending, not Hercs. We're sending 737s to Guam on a very regular basis. The question is, why? Why, indeed? So keep an eye out on that. I had a few people asking me about Skyglass and how to use it. Skyglass is a well, it's probably easier to say what you should do with Skyglass is use the filters extensively. If you've got Skyglass, use the filters extensively. So it'll filter out all sorts of different traffic. You can adjust those parameters too. So you don't want to get so for instance, single engine private aircraft. You don't want to see any of them floating around. You might also want to declutter from a twin engine perspective down, so you don't see any of those. You might only want to see military aircraft, which you will see quite happily, provided they have their transponder on when they're squawking. If they're not, then you're not going to see much. Now, if you follow blokes like Monkey Works, who use a Skyglass extensively, then you will understand from his perspective that we are being shown these military flights going from certain places in the States, as it was at the time, to Gitmo, and then back again. A lot of those flights coming direct out of New York, Washington, D.C., and out of Florida. Now, bear in mind that Gitmo is only 90 miles off the American coast, so it's not a terribly long distance. But the amount of flights going there and the amount of chartered flights going there, bearing in mind Gitmo is not a holiday destination, so to charter a plane to go there, you would need to have a military permission to be able to get onto the island to land there. It's not like it's a normal Air Force base or a normal public airport. It's nothing of the kind. So that in itself shows us that there is a huge amount of traffic that has been going to Gitmo. That traffic now has changed directions and is now flying out of the US, making a stop at times in Honolulu and then heading straight to Guam. So you got to think that'll be a refueling stop. But there have been some aircraft that haven't stopped. They've just made the trip the whole way. Those have been 767s and the like. Now, I think our Operation Talisman Sabre is coming to a close. Congratulations to everybody who's been involved in that. Now we get to watch extremely closely to see if anybody goes home. That would be the thing for me, folks. Keep an eye out on all those international troops. The exercise will be, I think it finishes today or tomorrow, sometime in the next week or so, maybe. And a lot of those people should, in theory, be heading home. We seem to be attracting a lot more American naval vessels here at the moment, including US Coast Guard vessels. Now, I am hearing that a deal has been reached where US Coast Guard vessels are now going to be a regular sight along parts of the eastern Australian coastline and along the northern Australian coastline. I find that a little bit interesting. For those who may not be aware, the Coast Guard, the US Coast Guard, use cutters. We might call them destroyers. They are a very, very, very well outfitted civilian navy, for the want of a better term. They're probably not civilian, but a government agency that isn't as military as the military, but they get all the good toys like the military. They are very well kitted out, and they are currently on a goodwill tour around the South Pacific. We'll be seeing a couple of their boats coming into, I believe, Sydney, Brisbane, and Melbourne over the coming months. So keep an eye out for those. Interesting that we've also got a lot of US aircraft still floating around. There is an air show happening the end of next week on the Gold Coast. That is the first Pacific Air Show, and it's going to happen right along the beach at Surfers Paradise, I'm led to believe. So kudos to anybody who's managed to get tickets on a beachside room down there. That's going to be one hell of an event. And the infrastructure going in for it is quite amazing. I know some people who are working in the background setting up communications for it, including aircraft communications, and it is going to be a very big event. Consequently, we're getting a lot of traffic flying into the Gold Coast or around Brisbane and being seen in various different parts. And you might see some exotic aircraft. We have at least 2 American warships that are the ships they call, or they say are capable of making a war by themselves, making and running a war by themselves. That means that they carry that much armament, that many people, and such a wide variety of weapons and ways of delivering them, that they can wage a war in a small country by themselves and don't need much else by way of support. We currently have 2 of them in Australian waters, the USS America and the USS New Orleans. They've been here extensively, supposedly, for Operation Talisman Sabre. Both aircraft carrying ships. They're not aircraft carriers, but they do have a lot of aircraft on them. The Harrier jump jets and the F-35s that are now VTOLs. They carry those. They have a lot of the Ospreys and a lot of other rotor aircraft. We're seeing a lot of them performing for the Pacific Air Show. I think the organizers of the Pacific Air Show have availed themselves of the largesse of the US military. by saying, would you please provide us with a few things to fly down the beach? And the US military have come to the party in a very big way. They're bringing F-35s, F-22s, F-A-18s. The Australian military, of course, will bring F-35s, F-18s, F-22s. We'll have a variety of rotor aircraft, although not the MRH-90. That aircraft was responsible for the 4 deaths up off Hamilton Island, and I think they're still fishing that aircraft out of the sea. And unfortunately, the 4 bodies that are still inside it. They're working, been working tirelessly to locate that wreckage and get it all up. So it's quite tragic what's happened. But thank God, no more Australian servicemen or women will ever have to get into one of those bloody French-made pieces of shit ever again. The MRH-90, otherwise known as the Puma, is a nice heavy lift helicopter, but it is a pig of a thing to fly. It is not a combat chopper. It might be all right, as a heavy hauler, but you don't want to be putting people in the bloody thing. They are danger personified. Thank God the first 2 of our new Black Hawks have arrived in Australia. I don't think they'll be airworthy much before the end of the year. And we've probably got to retrain everybody in how to fly them. We used to have Black Hawks here in Australia, magnificent aircraft, and some moron in the Defence Forces decided to reinvent the wheel and thought the French would. And here is the French, okay? Here's the French connection. We've got shithouse French helicopters, all right? Shithouse. And we did a deal for the shithouse French helicopters about the time we did the deal for the shithouse French submarine that they were 10 years behind on before they'd even laid anything down. So I think we dodged a very big radioactive bullet by not getting a French-built submarine. Because I think we could have some serious problems with that. So yeah, just have a bit of a look at this. amg-news.com is the site you can find this on. They have quite a lot of interesting little stories that they bring up to tell you about. And as you can see there, a couple of interesting video links that they'll put you through. This isn't the kind of site for everyone. So just be aware that, well, I don't believe everything I read there, put it that way. That's probably the easiest way of doing it. Black Hawk conked out and landed in Thornley Park. I didn't hear about that one, Paul. Look, Black Hawks have had issues too. You might recall that a number of our Special Forces soldiers died in 2 of them when they crashed during night operations up off Townsville some years ago. Another very sad moment. So having been in both those aircraft, I know which one I'd prefer to fly in any day of the week, and that would be a Black Hawk every day of the week. So I guess I don't know that much about helicopters, but I know what I like, and I know I don't like that. Thank you, Vince. Vince is just saying the Uluru Statement for the Heart is on the front page of vofhq.com if you want to go and have a look at that. If you haven't seen it yet, it's well worth a read. 26 pages, and a lot more to it than Albo would have you believe, lying sod that he seems to be. The Citroen of the air. Thanks, Paul. Yeah. Yeah, or some might say the Citroen, you're right. I was going to say the Fiat Ducato, but that's more Italian now, isn't it? Who else? I'll just go and see if there's any questions up along here. Yeah, Sunflower. I noticed that myself. I was up there the other day, very briefly in and out, and I saw a number of choppers flying just off the coast, and I went and had a look at the radars, and none of them were squawking. We did see a couple of CH-47s, the Chinooks. Oh, it must be a week ago they came past. They actually flew overhead here at about 500 feet, 2 of them. Once again, heading south. So I suspect they were going down to check out the box, what they call the performance box at the Pacific Air Show. So, getting back to what I was saying about that air show, lots of these aircraft being supplied by the Americans and others. There are many private people who own some significant and rare old aircraft. In fact, one of the followers of this program owns a Strike Master jet, which I haven't been lucky enough to get up close and personal with yet, but if I ever do, they'll do well to get me out of it. I don't know how to start it, so we won't go anywhere, but I'm not going anywhere until somebody takes me for a ride in it. Just amazing. But that one might be, you never know, you might see that one at the Pacific Air Show too. But yes, the air show generally winds up having to pay for those display aircraft to sort of come along. And I think the Gold Coast has decided that they're going to try and get as much bang for as little buck as they possibly can, and asking the Americans to do a few displays showcasing the power and might of the US military alongside the Australian military. They get it all for nothing. So you can expect a very, very heavily militarized show down on the Gold Coast, because that's where they're getting the bulk of the aircraft from, because they don't have to pay for them. It will be a great show all the same. I'm not trying to diss that. Any kind of air show for me is a great show. If you like jets that go fast and you can be up in one of those buildings along the beach there in Surface, up fairly high, you're in for an amazing view. Some years ago, I was lucky enough to be part of the Indie FM on-track radio and TV team. I did that for about 14 years. And part of what happened at the track every year was an air show. And I was lucky enough to be heavily involved with that on a number of occasions. And we were lucky enough to have a camera that was placed high up on one of the tallest buildings in Surfers Paradise at that time. It was very much near the track. And the people in that building got some of the best shots or best views of high-speed aircraft, F-111s and F-18s that they were at the time, flying around beneath them, because the aircraft were flying very low between the buildings in Surfers Paradise. So it's a very unique experience if you've ever been standing on a balcony and been able to look down into the cockpit of a fighter jet as it flies past you. That kind of thing will be available, I think, if you're in the very sweet corporate boxes for the Pacific Air Show, which is coming up a couple of weeks on the Gold Coast. Speaking of things that are coming up, Wednesday on the Sunshine Coast. If you're into hemp, the growing thereof, not the smoking thereof, we're talking about the industrial hemp. And there is going to be quite an expose, an information session, if you like, happening on Wednesday at the Waterfront Hotel in Diddillibah on the Sunshine Coast. It gets underway at midday. Camillo and his My Place team are putting that one together, and it should go a couple of hours, probably go 3 hours by the time Q&A is done. If you have a bit of interest in learning more about the product, the hemp product, and the uses for hemp in the community, more particularly, we're going to take a focus on building products. Hemp is an amazing building product. So we're going to learn about just some of the properties and what sort of buildings you can make, what sort of benefits there are in using hemp. Maybe we'll find out what you've got to be careful about using that too. And of course, if you happen to have a property that has nothing much growing on it at the moment, and you've got a fair few acres, then maybe you might like to put a hemp crop in, because there will be a hemp manufacturing facility running by the end of the year in the southeast corner of Queensland. And if you're going to have a hemp manufacturing facility, you need to have hemp to go in it. So if you do have a bit of land that you're not doing anything with, bear in mind, hemp will grow just about anywhere. It doesn't need a lot of water. And in fact, it needs very, very little water. Then you might want to consider looking into putting in 100 acres of hemp. There will be a market for it. And of course, then we're going to have to strip that hemp and then get it to the builders or to that machine a huge press that will put it into a board that is eminently workable and can be shaped into some amazing, truly amazing shapes. It's fire retardant to a point of over 1800 degrees, so the house isn't going to burn down easily or anything made out of hemp fiber. So I believe it's well worth looking into as both a viable product for your property if you've got some spare acreage and don't mind making a few extra bucks. You can understand that a hemp crop goes from a seed to a building product in 150 days. From a seed to a full building product in 150 days. That means you can turn over a couple of crops a year quite happily and establish a bit of an income out of it. Now, I'm not sure how much of an income, whether or not it's something you can live off, or it's just something that's going to help your farm project, or maybe you've got one of those 10-acre allotments where you thought you might like to have a farm, but not a really big one, and you haven't done anything with the other 9 acres you're not living on. Well, maybe this is an opportunity. Band together, put some hemp in the ground, and then we'll give you a place where you can sell it, and it will the likes of this manufacturer, who will then put the hemp to good use and build a variety of different products. And some of those will be showcased on Wednesday at the Waterfront Hotel in Diddillibah on the Sunshine Coast, 12 o'clock. You don't have to go and book tickets or anything like that, although if you want to go onto My Place Nambour, there will be an event notice there, so you can go through and signal your intention to pop along. I think tea and coffee is going to be available there, and of course it is a pub. You'll be able to get a beer and maybe even something to eat if that's what takes your fancy on the day. I will be going, so I will see you there on Wednesday. I'm going to bring some gear up. We'll film it, but we won't stream it live. And Wednesday night, not exactly sure what'll happen. I think I'm probably going to wind up staying up on the Sunshine Coast. I've got to get my car serviced on Thursday if I have enough money to get it serviced on Thursday. It just needs oil and filters, but relentless, these bastards. You just got to keep doing them. But anyway, if you don't do it, the car stops, I suppose, don't it? So fingers crossed, I'll be able to get that sorted out on Thursday as well. But Wednesday, a very, very important meeting on the Sunshine Coast. If you have a bit of land, if you'd like to learn more about the properties of hemp, what it can be used for, and just how safe and versatile it really is, it's going to be a magnificent event. And Camillo and the team from My Place Nambour, Noosa, I want to say, I think all the Nambours are involved, from Gympie down to Caloundra. I think they're all involved. So I just don't want to, single out Nambour, but Camillo is obviously a mover and shaker in this regard for us. And he's pushing this along wonderfully, along with Wendy, the lady responsible for bringing this machine into the country. God love her. So I don't know that I've got too much more to share with you, except maybe something to give us all pause for thought. Some months ago, probably over a year ago now, I showed you a video of a Russian hacker. This video came off the dark web. A Russian hacker had infiltrated a medical facility and had gained access to the Wi-Fi system and a logging system that was logging data coming from living subjects. What I'm saying is these subjects were the subject of the jibbity jab. And up until that time, they had never exhibited anything like a number before, much less an IP address or a MAC number. And he exposed the fact that he was able to read data of a friend who he found and traced back off the Wi-Fi number that the guy was giving off. Was able to tell when he was walking, when he was sleeping, how many beats per minute his heart was going, how many breaths he was having when he was resting, when he was asleep. The data was simply amazing. A lot of people said, oh, no, we don't believe that. Well, recently some French people got together, some French scientists, and they got a group of jabbed and a group of unjabbed people together. This is what they
Dose.
did.
Vous avez fait des tests antigéniques au PCR?
J'ai beaucoup fait, ouais.
Vous avez des objets connectés, montres, tablettes, téléphones.
Right, well, that went well, didn't it? I will try it again.
Dose. Vous avez fait des tests antigéniques au PCR?
J'ai beaucoup fait, ouais.
Oh, that's very weird. It just does not want to play. Let me see if I can fake it out another way.
Dose. Vous avez fait des tests antigéniques au PCR?
J'ai beaucoup fait, ouais.
Yeah, not going to let me play it. I'm going to have to play around with this, and I'll play it for you tomorrow night. But this French research group got a vaxxed and an unvaxxed group together, stood them in a field that had absolutely no electronic signals in it. So they'd measured it. They specifically found a field that had absolutely no electronic interference and electronic signals coming into it at all. And they sat these two groups of people separately in the field, and then one by one had them approach the table where the scientists were sitting. To do that, they've had to walk through an array of some kind, and that array has picked up a number from the jabbed folks as they've come through. So these people are very definitely emitting a signal now. I have no reason to believe that the French would be telling lies. No, that's no. Well, I have no reason to believe the French would be telling lies. The people who were informed of this is they've taken the news quite badly. They're quite shocked. Others are now doing further investigations. So I don't know if you happen to know anybody who has the ability to read those sorts of signals from a distance. Your mobile phone will actually do it. The problem is you turn your Wi-Fi reader on your mobile phone, and there are so many other signals floating around that it picks those up as well. How would you know which one relates to a jibbity-jabbed folk? So you sort of need to have that that signal-free area and a couple of groups to test them with. Redlands Bay Renegade. The Maui fires are looking very suspicious. Many high. Yeah, absolutely. Oprah Winfrey's property, she owned basically the center of that island. There are 6 known tunnels on that island, and all of them are on fire. When I say known tunnels, I don't mean tunnels and dumbs kind of tunnels. These are known big traffic tunnels. Of course, if you were going to have somewhere underground and an off-reach to another tunnel potentially, or an underground dumb, then you would do it out of one of those tunnels. So every tunnel on that island is ablaze. Some of the other things about it are very weird. You mentioned a couple here. Strange reports of air conditioners on fire and not trees. There have been other reports. There have been reports of trees cut in half, almost like a beam has hit them and cut them in half. Trees bursting into flame, which we do see here in Australia with Australian eucalypts. They will, off reflective heat, they can burst into flame themselves. I don't know. I have heard if there's peat in the ground, it's very possible that the peat's on fire, it gets to the tree roots and burns up through the tree roots. I don't know that any of that has got anything to do with Hawaii. The damage that I've seen on Maui and those other areas, and there are quite a few other areas, but they are all big celebrity secluded areas. So just in the immediate area of, at this point, what looks to be some of the worst damage, there is Oprah Winfrey, there is Jeff Bezos, there is Owen Wilson. I think Lionel Richie has a place there. I want to say there's 10 or 15 of them, all right there. And another one of the world's greatest billionaires owns an island just off Maui. He owns 98% of that island. So I did see that Oprah was walking around one of the recovery centers handing out pillows and that kind of thing. So, well, she can afford it. And I have no doubt she won't be sleeping there. She'll be staying at the best hotel in Honolulu or wherever she can stay. Bit disappointing to actually see her out and about at all, if I'm honest. But who knows? Might be a clone, all we can say. Some people are asking about Nun 2K. Yes, Nun 2K has been taken down. I think I have another 11 days off Nun 2K. YouTube didn't like what I was saying the other night about... I better not say it again. There were some things I was talking about the other night that YouTube didn't like. Some of those things were referring to what they would term misinformation, medical misinformation. We call it absolute truth, and hope that they will be held accountable for it sometime in the end. That's really all we can do. So, yeah. All right, folks, having a bit of a quick squeeze to see if there's anything else here to have a natter about. Oh, yeah, a lot of people won't get notifications. So, yeah, folks, if you are only subscribed to Nun 2K, then, yeah, you won't be getting any notifications from that channel. But all the ones would give you. I noticed that Facebook have banned me off the Wake Up channel as well, and yet they leave my personal one up. I don't know. I suppose I should be happy they're leaving one up. Really only post there just to see how I can annoy people. Hemp and bamboo, Veronique says, yes, I couldn't agree more. I think bamboo has some great properties as well. Look, I've watched a lot of videos recently about hemp and just started to see some about bamboo. Hemp is not the saving grace for everything. It's not the be-all and end-all. It is not the 100% total solution, but I believe it can play a very significant part in particularly short-term housing problems that we have at the moment, and the ability to produce affordable small homes for people that can go either onto public land or onto private land. And I can tell you that Camillo on the Sunshine Coast is working on something truly spectacular with the other My Places up there at the moment. I won't mention it just yet, but should they be able to bring off what they are attempting to bring off, it will be one of the most significant ventures in this country. And it will lead the way. It will lead the way for how communities should be working with their councils going forward. And this would only be happening if, well, it's only happening because Camillo's behind it and involved, and he's such a dynamo. So people of Sunshine Coast, get behind your local My Place, whether it be in Gympie, whether it be in Noosa, whether it be in, I think it's Coolum. I think there's another one, obviously, in Nambour. Mooloolaba or Maroochydor's got one, and there is another one down at Caloundra, all banding together. I think there's another one out in the Mooloola Valley as well. I want to say there was talk of one getting out there. So come and join it. If you're not already part of it, come to a My Place event. It doesn't matter if it's not on the Sunshine Coast. You can come to the VoF one that we'll have here in Brisbane in the next couple of weeks, or if you happen to be down south in New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia, or over in Western Australia, get your My Place going, get some more people in there, and get activated. There is a lot of good things coming our way. They're only going to come our way if we make them, folks. Don't sit around waiting for somebody else to come and save you. Don't be waiting for the military. We can't wait for the military. We have to save ourselves, and that means we have to start at the bottom with each other, with ourselves. Start close. Make sure your family's safe. Then your next door neighbor. Don't know your next door neighbor's name? Go over and introduce yourself. Take over a cup of coffee. Sit down, have a chat, see where they stand. Don't try and red pill them. Don't try and deprogram them if that's the way they are. Just be a friend. Be a community member. Let them know they're not by themselves. We all need to know we're not by ourselves. thank you, folks, as always, for sitting around and listening to me ramble on. I'm amazed, continually amazed that people do sit around and listen to me ramble on, and I can't thank you enough for the support that you do offer. If you want to make a donation to help us out, that would be great. VoFHQ.com is the website there. If you want to do something for yourself as well as me, then become a member. It starts as little as $1.25 a week, but we are going to have another membership contest in the near future, and I can tell you it's a doozy, an absolute doozy, and the prize might be a little bit more than 10 ounces of silver. So if you'd like to be part of that, you can only be part of that if you are a member. And you can join us at vofhq.com, or if you don't want to be a member and sign up to something like that, then we would gratefully accept any donation you care to give through the donate button you'll find there on the webpage. I hope you have a great night, folks. Oh, a little bit of news on my daughter, Laura. A lot of people have been asking how she's been, how she's going with what's been going on in her life for the last 3 years and the court case recently. I am overjoyed and beyond happy to tell you that, well, for a little while now, she's been feeling like she wanted to go back to work. She was happy enough to deal with people again because that's been quite an issue. So last week she went off for a job interview and got the job and started the job Friday. Today was her second day. Came home all happy and cheery and really chuffed. So hopefully this is the beginning of the next step for her. And I hope it goes much better than the last one did. But yeah, pretty chuffed for her. And that consequently means that she won't be traveling with me when I hit the road as often. I'm sure she'll still want to come at times. But it'll just have to depend on her work and her work schedule, or whether or not she can, and our work schedule. So thank you to everybody who's been inquiring about her and for the prayers for her. They have not gone unanswered, is all I can say. Thank you very much. I've said it before, and I will keep saying it until the day I die. You've given me my daughter back, folks. Wasn't anything I did. It was this community that's given me my daughter back. Thank you.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's ride!